Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get into this week's show. Friends, lovers, listeners, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and happy sex on the peach day. And here we are with the penultimate episode of season 4 of Sex on the Peach, with the season finale coming next week on Christmas Eve, just in time to stop talking about sex out of respect for our dear old Virgin Mary. And given that this week's conversation is all about contraception, the Virgin Mary is not a useful case study because, bless her, all the divine intervention in the world couldn't prevent that pregnancy. For the rest of us, abstinence does actually remain a highly effective pregnancy prevention method, but for the majority of adults, sex is part of life, and so contraception is a really important conversation. I do always try to do one episode per season that is very personal, and this conversation today is directly tied to my very recent experience with the NexplaNO contraceptive implant. We are, as a society, actually quite remarkably casual about preventing reproduction and sexually transmitted infections. We will spend easily 20 minutes reading TripAdvisor reviews before choosing a brunch restaurant. But when it comes to preventing a human life, we go, should be fine. And contraception is unfortunately an area of adult life where people routinely gamble their entire future during a moment of poor lighting and compromised judgment. No one buys a house like this. No one says, we didn't really read the contract, but it felt right. Or it'll probably be fine. And yeah, it probably will be right up until it absolutely isn't. And then suddenly you are on Google at 3 a.m. typing early pregnancy symptoms, but surely not me. There's also a strange cultural belief that talking about contraception is unsexy, that it kills the mood, which is interesting to me because I feel like nothing murders sexual tension quite like a pregnancy scare or a pharmacy run at 9 a.m. or a text that starts with, "We need to talk." If a conversation can't survive a condom, it definitely can't survive a child. And while, yes, failures do happen, as I spoke about in last season's penultimate episode, I used 3 different types of contraception and still ended up pregnant. So it can happen, but these things do happen far less often than people just using things incorrectly and then lying about it. Because we don't like admitting we took a risk. We say fate intervened, but it didn't. Dave just didn't put the condom on properly. And what makes the contraception conversation even more impressive in 2025 is how uneven the responsibility still is. Contraception is technically a shared issue, but in heterosexual relationships, it culturally remains very much in the hands of the vulva owner. Women and vulva owners manage hormones, schedules, implants, injections, side effects, mood changes, long-term health considerations, while men and penis owners often contribute a light suggestion that condoms are a bit annoying. Yeah, hun. Well, they also protect against sexually transmitted infections, so grow up. But condoms are treated like an optional accessory rather than an essential safety tool. as if pregnancy or an STI is a mild inconvenience. And contraception is a vital part of sexual health, but despite its importance, most people don't fully understand the differences between the methods. Each type of contraception works in a specific way. Each one has varying effectiveness and comes with its own potential side effects. For example, hormonal methods like the pill, the implant, or the injection, they all prevent ovulation and are highly effective at preventing pregnancy, but they offer no protection against sexually transmitted infections. Condoms, on the other hand, do provide dual protection. They reduce the risk of pregnancy and they protect against most STIs, but they need to be used consistently and correctly to be effective, which they often aren't. Hormonal contraceptives have side effects that can affect your bleeding patterns, your mood, your libido, and understanding all of these differences is really fucking important, because choosing a method of contraception isn't just about avoiding pregnancy. It's also about protecting your overall sexual health and choosing what fits best with your lifestyle and body. Which brings me neatly to why we are talking about this today, because I have recently been having an absolutely terrible time on the NexplaNO implant. Now, before anyone on it panics, this is not a hit piece. I'm not here to start a lawsuit, surprisingly, and I'm not saying it's bad or that it doesn't work. It is, from a pregnancy prevention standpoint, an absolute triumph. From a being a person standpoint, it's been more of a mixed bag. And what I'm saying is that for some people, the side effects are, shall we say, enthusiastic. And vulva owners are sold NexplaNO as low effort, highly effective, and largely ignorable. You'll forget it's there, they say. And I did forget it was there in my arm until it decided to make itself my entire personality. Mood swings, libido disappearing like a government website, emotional reactions so disproportionate they felt satirical in themselves, hormonal inflammation that was giving Oompa Loompa energy. And what's wild is not just the side effects themselves, it's how little we are encouraged to talk about them. Hormonal contraception is often framed as something you should just push through, something women and vulva owners should simply tolerate, as if feeling unlike yourself is a small price to pay for not getting pregnant. We don't apply that logic anywhere else. If a medication made men and penis owners feel sad, tired, disinterested in sex, and prone to crying over their toast, we would quite simply stop society. And to be clear, pregnancy prevention matters. Sexually transmitted infection prevention matters a lot. But so does your mental health. So does your sense of self. So does enjoying your own life. So today's episode isn't about demonizing contraception. It's about interrogating it. It's about asking why the burden is so lopsided, why the side effects are downplayed, and why just go on the implant is not the neutral, consequence-free suggestion it is sometimes presented as. Because contraception isn't just practical, it's psychological, it's relational, it's political, and for some people, it's a slow burning identity crisis. And if we are going to keep telling people, especially women and vulva owners, to take full responsibility for reproduction, we might as well at least be honest about what that can cost. So today we are going to talk about what works, what people pretend works, and what no one warns you about. And the fact that hope remains the most popular method of contraception in the UK. And this isn't a medical lecture. I'm not here to read out NHS leaflets in a calm voice whilst you dissociate. This is a reality check, because one of the sexiest things we can all bring to bed isn't just confidence or enthusiasm, it's preparation. So let's get into it. Here is It's a NexplaNO from me. Okay, so throughout my sexual existence, I have used many different types of contraception. I have used 4 different types of hormonal contraceptive pill, which were Dianet, Microgynon 30, Levest, and Yasmin. I was put on Dianet when I was in my late teens, and I was actually put on that for my acne, which, to be fair, it did a great job of clearing up. But I was taken off Dianet after 3 years because they recommend that to be the maximum time on it as a pill, which, when you think about it, is worrying, because 3 years isn't that long, and aren't these methods something we're supposed to set up for people to be able to take consistently? Red flag number 1. Microgynon 30 was, quite frankly, a disaster. I think I gained about a stone in water retention in approximately an hour of taking it. And what was wildly insulting is I asked to change it after about a month, and I was instead put on a pill called Levest, which, plot twist, it's just Microgynon 30 with a fancier name. Truly, what the fuck? Like being served reheated pizza with a fresh sprig of basil on top and being told it's gourmet. The female healthcare system is truly a hellscape of epic proportions. Like, not me being gaslit into the same pill with a different name. Are you actually for fucking real? After that nightmare of a half year, I was actually quite happily on Yasmin for years until I worked in America. And every girl I worked with there told me that Yaz was banned over there. And if it's banned in America, a country that thinks deep fried everything counts as a food group and eats chicken straight out of a chlorinated swimming pool, I figured maybe it was time to reconsider my life choices. I have obviously used condoms many a time. I also haven't used them many a time. Listen, we all know I am not here to preach to you or to be the all-wise sex guru. If anything, I'm happy to be the person who made the mistakes so that you don't have to. It's giving team player. And I think I care more about sexual protection because of the mistakes I have made in the past. So if you are someone who has been a bit irresponsible at times on the old contraception front, you'll get no judgment from me, but I will encourage and advocate for you to do better for yourself, because I don't think the potential outcomes are worth the risk. I have also used Natural Cycles, which is an ovulation tracker, and I used that for a few years and it was absolutely brilliant until a condom split on a red day, and then even the morning after pill didn't work and I ended up with an unwanted pregnancy despite 3 attempts to prevent it. I'm not going to delve into that situation too much today, but if you do want the ins and outs of it, please head to last season's episode, The Termination Tale. But essentially after that, I had the fear of God in me and decided I needed something different. And that wasn't Natural Cycles' fault. It was a bit of an anomaly, but I felt too much fear. So I went back onto the contraceptive implant. Now, I had been on the implant beforehand and everything had been, as far as I was concerned, great. except for a little extra bleeding when I would come towards the end of the 3 years, which is when you need to have it replaced. And I have since been on to further implants. I went back on it in 2019, had it replaced in 2022, and had my latest one replaced in June of this year. So for a long old time, the implant had been my contraception of choice for me and for my lifestyle and for my body. I've probably stated that many a time on this very podcast. And I think that makes this whole thing even more confusing because it had been great for such a long time. But since having the new NexplaNO implant put in June, it has, not to be dramatic, ruined my life. And I probably would have figured that out earlier had I not been on so many previous implants that had not ruined my life. Honestly, this implant has truly given straight MT boy between the height of 5'10", 5'11" energy. Seemed charming at first, but all it delivered was chaos and regret. Now, for anyone who has followed along with this season, I have been very upfront about the fact I have felt like I've been mentally struggling. I have felt performance anxiety towards the podcast. I felt incredibly low and lost at the state of the world. I've had literally zero motivation. I've lost my sense of joy. I've been convinced that my constant existential dread has destroyed my libido. And listen, I'm sure there is a side of that which holds some truth and space, but I have felt very not myself at all. And because of my previous success with the implant, I didn't even really consider that it was that contributing so badly to my general emotional state. The reason I started to question it was actually mostly physical, because I have bled constantly since I had this implant put in. Sure, some days it was lighter than others, but I don't think there has been a day where I haven't bled at all. I have also gained almost 1.5 stones in weight in 6 months, having changed precisely nothing about my lifestyle. Now, I'm a body confident gal, or a body neutral gal, I should say, because I am confident as a person, and my body is just a vessel for that. I consider my looks a secondary product. So if I naturally gain weight as I get older, maybe my metabolism slows down, maybe my habits change, fine. I'm genuinely okay with that. I recognize it's not in my genetics to gain a lot of weight. I have a really petite family, but at the same time, bodies are going to body and they're going to do their body thing. And if mine is going to change or fluctuate over time, that is completely fine. But I would like to have control over that, mostly because I cannot afford to replace my entire wardrobe right now, given that my entire wardrobe spans both an entire bedroom and the entire loft of my house. But I haven't had that control. It got to the point where I started experimenting on my own body to try and figure out what the hell was up. I put myself on a pretty wild calorie deficit for a couple of weeks just to see if I even had control over my weight, and yet I continued to gain it. Normally, if I put myself on that number of calories, I would be losing weight quite drastically by the day. So that was a significant shift in my body. And the issue was it just didn't feel like natural weight. I have felt swollen and uncomfortable. And honestly, like if someone took a pin and poked me, I would like explode. I mean, listen, loving having sizable boobs for the first time in my life. What a fun accessory to this whole event. But most of the time they are painful and sensitive. So alas, that has taken the shine off my brand new cleavage a little bit. And perhaps the worst thing, given that ironically for the first time in my entire relationship history, I have a partner with a higher sex drive than me, I have completely lost my sex drive. I also have to say, I now understand my previous partners a little better as the partner with the lower sex drive. I'm now on the other side, and it is enlightening. It is a humbling education. I mean, I am extremely grateful to be with what I believe to be the most understanding and empathetic partner to have ever walked the earth. Like, seriously, he should have a podcast of his own because men and penis owners could learn a lot from him. But for me, I'm like, this person has entered into a relationship with someone with a high sex drive who literally spends her time talking about sex and how to improve sex and how to enjoy sex and how to communicate to have more sex and more pleasure. And 4 months in, she's giving drier than the Sahara Desert. It has felt extremely embarrassing and uncomfortable, even though he has made me feel precisely none of those things and only been supportive and kind. But it makes me feel like a complete fraud. And it's nothing to do with attraction. I am very attracted to my partner. I've actually only ever experienced the opposite in the past, where my sex drive has still been intact, but I've lost attraction for the person I have been in the relationship with. And that just isn't the case here, which kind of makes it so much more conflicting and confusing to navigate, because the attraction is there, but I just don't have a single urge in my body to even masturbate. And we all know I'm someone who is like, if I don't masturbate twice a day, I immediately turn into Ebenezer Scrooge, just a moody little bitch. But there have been weeks and weeks and weeks where I haven't even thought about it. It has literally felt like my brain is a Google Chrome window and someone has just deleted the libido tab. Literally by. The past few months have truly been miserable, and I have been fucking miserable. We went away on holiday together in November, and I was bleeding so much it was giving Niagara Falls, and we were not even able to try and make holiday sex work. And whilst that might not be all that important to everyone, and that's fine and valid, it is important to me. I hated that. 0 holiday sex is just not the life for me. And as soon as we got back, I decided one night I wanted this thing out of my fucking arm. And weirdly, as I messaged to tell him that, he also messaged me to tell me he had been thinking the same thing, and that he had been researching the implant and the effects it can have on women, and that everything that had been said from both medical websites and also personal stories that people had shared on blogs about it was everything I was experiencing. Now, we all know, I think, the state of sex education is in the fucking gutter, and it's sad that men and penis owners don't have this knowledge in the first place. But also a lot of men do not care to find out. They would much rather turn a blind eye. It's very not my problem energy. And therefore, for me, it was a huge green flag that he had taken it upon himself without request or prompt to find this information out. I mean, listen, I'm pretty sure he missed holiday sex too. I'm not a fucking idiot, but it has been a very validating experience to be with a partner who is willing to learn and communicate and understand and support and participate in the contraception conversation. And I am in a position that is different than some other people's will be, in that myself and my partner do not think that we want to have biological children. And therefore, we are currently discussing more permanent options. I completely understand and appreciate that might not feel like an option for some people. So that might not be helpful if they want to conceive in the future. Although we are going to get into the vasectomy conversation in a little bit. And in my opinion, more men could do with considering it to be a potential option, to be perfectly honest with you. But we made the decision that I would get this thing out. And let me tell you, I had to basically threaten to rip the thing out of my own arm to even get an appointment, because I've only had it since June. They even offered to give me medication to stop the bleeding. Like, no, ma'am, I don't want to put more shit in my body. Thank you so much, though. Thank you for the kind offer. I then, for the first time ever, had a male nurse at the sexual health clinic when I went to get the thing out, which was a little over a week ago now. And when I told him that I wanted the fucking thing out, he didn't really ask why. He didn't try convincing me otherwise. And when I mentioned that that was a different experience than I was used to, because I've already experienced so much resistance to having it taken out, he said if I was a female or had female partners, I wouldn't want them to take hormonal birth control. And this is someone working in sexual health. Isn't that fucking worrying? And listen, I think contraception is such a personal thing and such a personal journey, and everyone's experience on it is so different. And the implant worked for me for a long time, or so I thought anyway. I have now had it out for just over a week, and I can literally feel myself, basically deflating. It's wild. And B, it feels like the clouds are lifting. And it worries me that other women and vulva owners are walking around just dealing with it and tolerating feeling out of their own bodies, when actually it's not fucking okay. If one tiny rod in your arm can cause this much chaos, it's no wonder so many people are confused about contraception. So I ran a poll on Instagram to see what people are actually using and thinking about contraception. About 22% have tried the implant. And when I asked what people's experiences were, the responses were really quite all over the place. Some people said, I'm on my third one, no issues at all, brilliant so far. Others said, I was fine for the first year or so, and then I bled almost constantly to the point I was anemic. Or shit, 2 periods a month, and they ended up putting me on the pill anyway. One person said, I thought I had a great time until I got it removed, and wow, did my sex drive come back. And another said, my mental health took a massive nosedive on it, but I was forced to keep it for 6 months because it apparently takes 6 months to settle. They only removed it when I threatened to cut it out myself. Yeah, well, I've been there. So they are some vast experiences for people. And interestingly enough, obviously it's all anonymous on here, but my friend who said they were on their third one and had no issues at all, I then messaged them and said, that's interesting because I just had my third one put in and this has been my experience. And they then came back with, I am actually experiencing a lot of the things you've mentioned. I just hadn't even considered it. So I think because as women and vulva owners, we are conditioned to tolerate birth control. Half the time we aren't even aware of the ways in which it might be affecting us. Anyway, for people who haven't tried the implant, the pill was the most common method, coming in at 32%, condoms 24%, the coil 20%, and ovulation trackers 24%. Instagram only lets me ask for 4 options on a poll, which is really annoying. I would have loved to ask about the injection, and I would have loved to have seen how many people were willing to be honest about the pull-out method, but I didn't get that option. And when it comes to who carries the burden, 70% of vulva owners said they feel it falls solely on them. And amongst everyone who answered who is on birth control, 61% said they are happy with their current method, but 39% said they wish they could come off it. So I think what we can ascertain is contraception is personal, yes, but it's very messy as a conversation and as a real life application. And it's very unevenly shared, which is exactly why understanding all the options and what actually works for you is so important. And that's why we need to talk about all the options. So at least we know what we are actually signing up for. So let's have a fucking rundown of the contraceptive options out there, because knowing about contraception is not a moral exercise. It's a fucking practical one. Condoms are the only widely available method that provide significant protection against sexually transmitted infections as well as pregnancy. They are accessible. You can get them free from sexual health clinics. And listen, you can even get them in a rainbow of colours, flavours, and textures if that's your vibe. That's the good news. The bad news, humans. Condoms fail most often, not because they are flawed, but because we are. It's usually because they weren't used properly, or they were introduced halfway through and everyone decided to pretend that still counts. Even with perfect use of condoms, there is a small failure rate of about 2%, because they can split. It does happen. But with general real life use, that percentage jumps dramatically to about 15 to 18%, which tells you everything we need to know about human behavior. Don't shove them in a hot wallet or leave them baking in a car for months on end, because that heat and that friction will turn them into useless rubber spaghetti. And oil-based lube, because we know I'm a lube champion, oil-based lube is a no-go unless you want a catastrophic latex meltdown. And if you or your partner or partners have sensitivities or allergies, yes, you will need to pick the right type. They aren't glamorous. They do require a bit of planning and a bit of basic competence, but in return, they offer something that no other method does. They are the only method that covers both pregnancy and STI risk, which is why, for all the complaining, they are still doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting in the contraception world. Hormonal methods include the pill, the patch, the implant, and the injection. And they all work by manipulating our reproductive systems to prevent pregnancy. That usually means stopping ovulation, thickening cervical mucus, and sometimes altering the uterine lining so that implantation can't happen. Yeah, we are truly gaslighting our own reproductive systems. They are highly effective, and failure rates are less than 1% when used perfectly. The combined oral contraceptive pill, when taken every day at roughly the same time, is extremely effective at preventing pregnancy. And beyond contraception, it can regulate periods, reduce cramps, improve acne, and it can even lower the risk of ovarian and endometrial cancers. However, it requires daily attention because missing a pill drastically reduces its effectiveness. Side effects can include mood swings, nausea, breast tenderness, headaches, changes in libido, breakthrough bleeding, and whilst rare, there are some serious risks, such as blood clots, which are higher for smokers over 35 or people with certain medical conditions. And the pill can also interact with other medications, including some antibiotics and anticonvulsants. And fertility usually returns quickly after stopping, which is a positive thing if you are looking to conceive. But practically, you need to plan for refills. So that means considering your travel schedule if you are going on holiday or going away for a long time. And you have to remember to take it consistently because running out or forgetting even once can be stressful because it really reduces the protection. The patch is applied weekly to the skin, usually on the arm, back, or your ass, and it releases hormones similar to those in the pill. You wear it for 3 weeks and then have a patch-free week, and its main advantage is that it reduces the daily mental load of remembering a pill while still providing consistent hormone delivery, and it offers similar benefits for acne and cycle regulation. However, it can irritate the skin at the application site, and it carries the same potential hormonal side effects as the pill. And in some cases, your weight or body composition can affect its effectiveness. You need to remember to change it each week, but placement can be discreet. You can have it where you want it, and removal is immediate if the side effects do become intolerable. The implant, my good old friend NexplaNO, is a small, flexible rod inserted under the skin of the upper arm that releases hormones continuously for up to 3 years. It is extremely effective with a failure rate of less than 1%, and it is one of the most reliable forms of contraception available. The main advantages are that it is long-acting, low maintenance, and fully reversible once removed. And for some people, it can reduce or even stop periods entirely, which it did for me for a really long time. However, as I have learned in the hardest of ways, it is not without trade-offs. Irregular bleeding is very common, ranging from spotting to heavier or prolonged bleeding, and people can experience the following side effects: mood changes, acne, headaches, shifts in libido, breast tenderness, and weight fluctuations. Oh, how I recognize every single one. Insertion and removal require minor procedures performed by your healthcare professional, and whilst fertility typically returns quickly after removal, it is of course really important to discuss your personal tolerance for hormones before choosing this method. Practically speaking, once it's in, it requires very little ongoing attention. No daily pill taking, no weekly patch changes, which is one of the biggest advantages of the implant for anyone with a busy lifestyle. But it does mean committing to a minor medical procedure and being prepared for the possibility of irregular bleeding and who knows what the fuck else. A roller coaster ride really could be fine. It could ruin your life. No, in all seriousness, the implant is highly effective and highly convenient, but trust me, it is not a hands-off miracle. Understanding how it interacts with your body and being prepared for the hormonal side effects is really a huge part of deciding whether it is the right method for you. And the injection, which is one of the lesser used options, is a progestin-only contraceptive that's administered every 8 to 12 weeks. It works by preventing ovulation, thickening cervical mucus, and altering the uterine lining. And one of its main advantages, again, is convenience, because once it's been administered, it eliminates that need for daily pills, weekly patches, and it's discreet. It offers long-acting protection without ongoing attention. Some people experience reduced or even completely stopped periods, which can be a significant benefit for those who struggle with heavy or painful menstruation. However, as per most other hormonal contraceptions, it can cause weight gain, mood changes, decreased libido, headaches, and with long-term use, a reduction in bone density, which might require some monitoring. No problem. Let's just give it to the women, to the girls, to the vulva owners. Who gives a fuck about bone density? Just give it to them. It's their responsibility. Give them the injection. Yeah, no problem. Roll that out. That's fine. Who cares about their bones? Anyway, fertility might take several months to return after stopping the injection. So that's a really important consideration for anyone planning a pregnancy in the near future. Practically, each dose does require an appointment, and the side effects may persist between injections. So ongoing management and awareness of your body's response are really important with this method. When considering hormonal contraception as a whole, there are several things to keep in mind. First, the side effects are real. The mood changes, the libido shifts, the fatigue, the other hormonal effects. They aren't signs of weakness. They aren't flaws. They aren't in your head. You aren't making them up despite some healthcare professionals convincing you that you are. They are biology, and understanding them is really fucking important when you are choosing a method that you can tolerate. Putting unnatural amounts of hormones in our bodies actually isn't normal. So don't let other people convince you that you aren't feeling something or experiencing something that you are. We cannot, as women and vulva owners, continue to let ourselves be gaslit into believing our bodies are okay when we know they aren't. Second, there's the mental load of these contraceptive methods, the pills, the patches, the injections. They all require remembering a schedule or a refill. And all of that is invisible labor. Hormonal methods might simplify life in some ways, but they don't remove responsibility entirely, because effectiveness depends on consistent use. Missed pills, delayed injections, improper patch changes, all of that stuff can reduce protection. And even long-acting methods can fail if instructions aren't followed or if medical interactions occur. So the bottom line is hormonal contraception is powerful, yes, but it isn't neutral. Each method has these potential side effects, and choosing the right one for you is about understanding your body, your lifestyle, and your tolerance for hormones, and being honest with yourself about what you feel you can manage. And there's no shame if you can't manage any of it, because it isn't natural for us to be doing it in the first place. So knowledge here isn't optional. It's honestly really essential, because when you truly understand how each method works, you aren't just preventing pregnancy, you are taking meaningful control over your body and your life, which you deserve to continue to enjoy. IUDs, intrauterine devices, or coils as they are often called, are tiny T-shaped devices which are inserted into the uterus to prevent pregnancy. And there are two types. There's hormonal, which releases progestin, and copper, which is hormone free. And both are extremely effective. We're talking failure rates under 1% again, and they can last anywhere from 3 to 10 years, depending on the type that you get. Hormonal IUDs can reduce periods or stop them altogether, but copper IUDs might make your periods heavier or more painful at first. So pick your poison, I guess. Let's talk insertion. Any procedure, especially related to female sexual health, that is described as a bit uncomfortable is almost certainly about to be more than a bit uncomfortable. I've learnt that the hard way too. Most of my friends who have the coil have said that they experienced extremely painful cramping, sharp pain, and dizziness. But once it's in, if and when it settles, it's mostly invisible. There's minimal ongoing attention. There's no daily pills. There's no weekly patches. It's a contraception that quietly does its job while you get on with your life. And you might get irregular spotting, you might get changes in your bleeding pattern, and in some rare cases, the device can shift or cause an infection. But to be honest, for most people I know that use the coil, the trade-off seems to be worth it for them, and they all seem pretty happy on it. And it's probably the form of contraception that I hear the least negative things about. I have never had it, and I am not out here. This is not hashtag ad. This isn't hashtag sponsored by the Marina Coil. I have no desire to influence anyone to do anything to their body that they do not want to do. I've not been on it, so I cannot report back personally. I would only ever advocate for things that I have tried personally. So all I can go on is the opinions of people who have had it, and compared to people who are on the pill or on the implant or another type of hormonal birth control, it is quite simply the one I've had the most positive feedback about. But don't think I'm trying to influence you to get it, because that is truly quite simply not the case. Then there are fertility awareness-based methods, including ovulation trackers. I've mentioned natural cycles. There's quite a lot of different ones out there now, but that's the only one I've tried. And they use your basal temperature, your menstrual cycle history, and sometimes other indicators to predict your fertility windows. And on paper, this really can work. And for years, it was very effective for me personally. But in practice, it demands obsessive consistency. You need to take your temperature at the same time every day, usually as soon as you wake up. You need to record it accurately. You need to follow the app's recommendations exactly. If you miss a reading, if you misread your cycle, or you ignore your fertile window, that effectiveness dramatically drops off, just like my libido did on the implant. Failure rates are higher than hormonal methods. They are around 7 to 12% per year. And alongside the hormonal ones, this method provides no protection against STIs. The advantage is that it is non-hormonal, which some people love. I know I did, and it can help you understand your cycle in detail. The downside is that it's unforgiving and it requires real discipline. You can't just forget a day without consequence. So it is a legitimate choice for some, but it's also high maintenance and high risk if it isn't followed meticulously, and it's definitely not a casual backup. And finally, let's be blunt, the pull-out method, which is not a form of contraception. It is a prayer dressed up as action. Its effectiveness relies entirely on perfect timing. And frankly, humans are fucking terrible at that. Typical use failure rates are high, far higher than most people realize. One lapse, one misjudged moment, and all the planning, all the other contraceptive effort is undone in a second. It is effectively gambling with someone else's body, health, and future. Pulling out is not responsibility, and it's certainly not a method. It is hope dressed up as control with stakes that are very, very real. And yet, for some reason, it continues to be treated as a legitimate option in casual conversations, which honestly is baffling. Is it an insane choice? Yes. Have I done it many a time? Yes. Have I made this mistake so that you don't have to? Yes. And I think what we can see from this available list is that there is one safe option that actually pertains to men and penis owners. The rest are all on women and vulva owners, and that is fucking disgraceful. The thing that my partner said to me about my implant nightmare that made me want to pretty much immediately burst into tears was, this isn't a you problem, it's an us problem. Because he is the first partner to have ever treated the conversation of contraception as an equal playing field. The bar has truly been in hell, because contraception is a shared responsibility in theory. In practice, not so much. As we can see, the majority of contraception options, pills, implants, IUDs, injections, they all rely on women and vulva owners to manage hormones and their side effects, which is a constant balancing act between effectiveness, convenience, and personal tolerance. Meanwhile, men and penis owners often outsource the entire risk, consciously or unconsciously, to their partner. I don't like condoms is literally said by men and penis owners all the fucking time. And just pause for a moment. Really think about what that actually means. Condoms are the only form of contraception that men fully control. One person has the choice, and the other person, the one who bears almost all the biological, emotional, and practical consequences, is left entirely at their mercy. And the objection is friction, sensation. Not cost, not time, not planning, friction. So let's put that into context. What's at stake if a condom isn't used properly or at all? There's pregnancy. That's a potential lifelong responsibility. There's sexual health, the risk of contracting an STI, some of which are incurable or have long-term health consequences. There's mental health, the stress, the anxiety, the relational fallout of an unintended pregnancy or STI. And the person saying, I don't like condoms, is treating all of that like the inconvenience. Meanwhile, women are juggling the hormonal load. Daily pills, monthly injections, implants quietly releasing hormones for years, interventions that influence mood, libido, sometimes your entire identity, and always involve a degree of mental labor, remembering, planning, adjusting, monitoring. They are carrying a physical and psychological burden, often quietly, and the person with the ability to take some responsibility is arguing about fucking texture. And this objection isn't rare. It's really normalized in our culture. Media jokes about it, friendship groups shrug about it, and partners often defer, not because it's a negotiation of consent, but because they don't want conflict. But the stakes are literally life-altering, and yet society often treats this risk, a risk someone else is absorbing fully, as trivial. Condoms are instantaneous protection. The intervention happens in the moment, exactly when it's needed. Skip it once, and all the planning, all the hormonal control, all the effort invested by the other partner is instantly negated. One small act of impatience, one refusal, and years of risk management are undone. This is where the absurdity becomes really fucking stark, because one person's comfort is being prioritized over someone else's body, health, and future. One tiny objection is treated as legitimate, while the consequences fall entirely on the other person. That's not preference. That's irresponsibility. That's insanity. Grow up. And yet socially, it's treated as normal. People shrug. Women are expected to just absorb the fallout, and the responsibility gap widens. I don't like condoms is not just a refusal of a barrier method. It's a refusal to accept the only form of contraception that the speaker fully controls. It's a gamble with someone else's life, and it is shocking how casually that gamble is framed. I don't like condoms is, to me, absurd on every level: biological, psychological, logistical, and social. It's the clearest demonstration of how contraception is gendered and how responsibility is unevenly distributed and how cultural norms excuse behaviour that in reality carries enormous stakes. It's not just a minor inconvenience, it's a moment of profound irresponsibility dressed up as a preference. There's also the vasectomy myth. It's often joked about, treated as a punchline, or dismissed as extreme, when in reality, it's one of the most effective forms of contraception available. It's over 99% reliable, it's low risk, and it's permanent, yet fully reversible in the sense that it doesn't affect ongoing health or sexual function. The procedure itself is relatively straightforward: minor surgery under local anaesthetic, usually completed in under an hour, with recovery typically measured in days, not even weeks. And yet uptake for vasectomies remains disproportionately low. And that is down to cultural ideas about masculinity, fears about permanence, and persistent myths such as it will kill my libido, or it's complicated, or I might regret it. All of these things deter many men from even considering it. And so the hormonal burden and the risk management just continues to fall overwhelmingly on women. A vasectomy isn't just a medical procedure. It's a very powerful tool for shared responsibility. It's a method that allows men to participate actively in preventing pregnancy without relying on their partner's body or hormones. Yet because of stigma, misinformation, and outdated cultural expectations, it's still treated as unusual or easily dismissed. The reality is simple. If more men seriously considered vasectomies, it would shift the balance of contraception. It would reduce unintended pregnancies, and it would create far more equitable sexual partnerships. And yet, despite its simplicity and its effectiveness, it remains a very underused option. And that is a casualty of social attitudes rather than science or practicality. And as we've already said, there's the classic fallback of I'll pull out. And again, let's call it what it is. It's not responsible, and it's certainly not a method of contraception. The pull-out method is just an optimism-based gamble. Unlike pills, condoms, implants, there's no safety net, there's no backup plan, there's no margin for error, and yet it continues to be cited as a viable method. As if biology will just cooperate out of politeness. Spoiler, it won't. The pull-out method is not a strategy, and relying on it is about as sensible as skydiving without checking your parachute. So if your contraceptive plan is based on luck, you're behind. You're very behind. Pulling out is not participation in shared responsibility. It's wishful thinking. So I think we can all agree women are the ones absorbing the burden, the hormonal burden. And whilst women are managing these invisible, ongoing physiological effects, men's contribution often stops at opinions about sensation, complaints about condoms, or preferences about side effects that don't even affect them. Meanwhile, the person carrying the biological load is navigating real bodily consequences, hormonal fluctuations, and the mental weight of planning and remembering contraception. And this isn't about vilifying men. It's about pointing out the imbalance. If we are serious about sexual health, the conversation needs to include equitable responsibility, access to male-controlled contraception, and honest discussion about trade-offs. Condoms and vasectomies exist, but for too long, the burden has been lopsided and the conversation around responsibility has been polite to the point of being ineffective. Contraception is not a woman's problem. It's a partnership problem. And until men take responsibility for the methods they can control, and until everyone understands the hormonal and physical realities of the other methods, this imbalance will continue to create both unintended pregnancies and unnecessary stress. And here's where it gets political. Here's a story that perfectly illustrates the gendered absurdity of contraception. Pharmaceutical companies trialed a male contraceptive pill, basically the equivalent of what women have been taking for decades. The goal was simple: give men a method they could control, reduce the hormonal burden on women, share some responsibility. The trials were cancelled because men complained about the side effects: headaches, mood swings, decreased libido, all the same things women have been told are normal or manageable for decades. Side effects that frankly are considered acceptable when a woman experiences them, but are suddenly a deal breaker when a man did. Think about that for a second. Women have been managing these exact same effects for decades, while society treats them as part of normal life. But when men face even a fraction of that inconvenience, it's labelled intolerable. Can't do it. The implication is pretty fucking clear. Men get a veto on hormonal discomfort. Women don't. And that isn't just unfair, it's insane. We are supposed to believe that contraception is shared responsibility, but when it comes to side effects, the rules change. Women endure it, men won't. The male pill could have been a game changer, but apparently a few headaches are too much of a price for shared responsibility. And so the burden remains almost entirely on women. It is a perfect example of the double standard baked into our approach to contraception. Women get the side effects, the scheduling, the insertion, the mental load, and men get to complain about a little hormonal inconvenience and cancel progress entirely. If contraception is going to be equitable, we have to confront this hypocrisy because the science exists, the methods exist. It's just social and cultural attitudes that refuse to let men play the same game women have been forced to play for generations. And that isn't accidental. It's shaped by historical and ongoing decisions about whose bodies, risks, and labour are considered primary. Until society addresses both the practical and political dimensions of contraception, the imbalance will persist. Women carry the burden, Men carry the opinions and everyone pays the price. And even when people know what contraception does, why it matters, and how to use it correctly, mistakes still happen. Knowing the methods is one thing, understanding why they fail in real life is another entirely. Most people genuinely believe deep down that it won't happen to me. That tiny seed of overconfidence can undo even the best laid plans. You might think, we've been careful enough, or it'll probably be fine. And statistically, it often isn't. And then there's arousal. Being turned on shuts down the part of the brain responsible for planning, long-term thinking, and self-control. In that moment, decision-making isn't just impaired, it's basically offline. Your desire, hormones, and biological wiring are running the show, and logic is sitting in the corner crying quietly. And this is why condoms get skipped at exactly the wrong time, why pills are forgotten, why the timing of other methods can go out of the window. And this is biology, it's not a moral failing. In the heat of the moment, one partner might defer to the other, assume the other one knows better, or avoid insisting on a method simply to sidestep conflict. And there's the ever-present fear of killing the mood, which is unsurprisingly very common. A lot of skipped protection isn't necessarily because someone doesn't care. It's because they don't want to interrupt desire or create tension. And the thing is, that tiny 5-second pause to communicate or grab protection can prevent months, years, or even a lifetime of consequences, which brings us to the dry, unromantic truth. Negotiating safe sex can feel awkward. It can feel uncomfortable, and yes, it can feel unsexy, but that discomfort is trivial compared to the alternative. Pregnancy, STIs, and the emotional fallout are unforgiving in ways that 5 seconds of planning never will be. So, contraception isn't just about knowledge or even willingness. It's also about understanding human behavior, your partner's behavior, and how desire interacts with decision making. And talking about contraception doesn't have to be awkward, even though society does its very best to make it that way. The reality is simple. If you are mature enough for sex, you are mature enough for logistics and a practical conversation. And early dating is usually where nerves are the highest, but honesty and normalization make all the difference. Keep it straightforward. A simple, what are you using for contraception is enough. It is literally no different than asking about dietary requirements. It's necessary, it's practical, and it's entirely reasonable. There's no need for preamble or justification or excuses. No drama, no guilt, no guessing, just clear information. It signals that you care about both your health and theirs, and it sets a tone of mutual responsibility. In the moment, that is hormones on high, arousal heavy moments, boundaries are essential. Anything along the lines of no condom, no entry signals both safety and self-respect. And yes, sexy people fucking do this. Setting boundaries does not kill the mood. It establishes trust and respect. The most confident and relaxed people in bed are those who communicate their needs clearly and consistently. And the gross reality is not everyone will agree. Some partners may refuse to use protection or brush it off or try to pressure you, but that is not a negotiation. Your body and your safety are non-negotiable. Walking away from a situation where that happens is entirely valid. Saying no is not a failure or a mood killer. That is self-respect. If someone cannot respect basic safety, that is beyond a red flag. It's not a personal rejection or a sign of incompatibility. Safe sex should be a shared responsibility. And if your partner refuses, it's a clear signal that they are not ready to share it. So enforce your boundaries, be clear, and do not compromise on your health. It's uncomfortable, yes, but again, it's far less uncomfortable than the consequences of unprotected sex. And long-term relationships also come with their own traps because people often assume that a one-time decision about contraception is permanent. But bodies change, hormones shift, and life circumstances evolve. Sometimes gradually, sometimes abruptly. What worked 6 months ago might suddenly feel wrong or uncomfortable or inconvenient. That's exactly what happened with me and the implant. That's why checking in regularly is really important. Asking, is this still working for you? Or do we need to adjust our method? It keeps everyone informed, and it also prevents resentment from happening in your relationship. Revisiting contraception isn't nagging, it's maintenance. It's relationship and sex maintenance. It's like car servicing or taxes or checking that your smoke alarm still works. It might feel a bit boring and inconvenient, but it's far better than dealing with a catastrophic failure. Ignoring it doesn't make the problems go away. It just makes them messier and far more painful later. So, consistent communication about contraception in long-term relationships isn't really optional. It's part of building a reliable, respectful partnership where all people feel safe and heard and in control. So normalize the conversation early, make it routine and revisit it. Use humor if it helps to lighten the mood, but don't let awkwardness or embarrassment or fear prevent you from having clarity. Clear communication isn't just polite, it's practical. You know, the goal isn't just avoiding pregnancy or STIs, although that's important, yes. It's about creating a culture in your relationship of shared understanding and honest, ongoing dialogue. At the end of the day, contraception is not a test of trust or of chemistry or sexual prowess. It's a practical matter. It's logistics, like running a household, paying bills, planning a holiday. Handling it responsibly makes everything else so much easier. The sex itself can become more relaxed and more enjoyable when you don't have that to worry about. The relationship can function more smoothly, and you can avoid the stress of an unplanned surprise that might derail both your intimate space and your entire life plans. And when that framework is in place, sex doesn't only feel safer, it's less stressful, it's more confident, and frankly, a lot more fun. The kind of fun that comes from knowing you and your partner are on the same page, physically, emotionally, and practically. Good contraception isn't just adulting, it's another secret ingredient to better sex, better relationships, and fewer unnecessary headaches. Contraception is not just about preventing pregnancy and STIs. It's an essential part of consent. Agreeing to sex without discussing protection isn't neutral. It's actively putting one person's body, health, and future at risk, and that's a problem. Consent is more than a yes or no. It's informed, it's mutual, and it includes practical considerations like contraception. This responsibility should be shared. Contraception is not a solo project, and pretending it is a recipe for mistakes. All partners need to understand the available methods, their effectiveness, their side effects, and their trade-offs. Do you even want your partner to experience some of the things that these methods of contraception can cause when you really look at it and think about it? When both people actively participate in these decisions, the chances of mistakes, surprises, or resentment drop dramatically. Pregnancy risk is, unfortunately, incredibly asymmetric. One partner carries almost all the biological consequences, from the pregnancy itself to the medical, emotional, and social impacts. Ignoring that asymmetry is dishonest. Anyone who acts as if the risk is evenly distributed is failing to take consent seriously. As I've said so many times already, this isn't just about avoiding pregnancy or STIs. It's about integrity, communication, and accountability. Being proactive with contraception is a tangible form of respect. Respect for your body, for your partner's body, and the potential life that you could create together. It's saying, I see the stakes, I understand them, and I'm taking them seriously. That is adult. That is responsible. And frankly, it's attractive. And let's be blunt, one of the most unattractive things to exist in the bedroom is someone pretending they don't fucking understand how reproduction works. Chemistry and desire are fantastic, but they do not excuse ignorance. Being informed, responsible, and communicative is not only practical, it's sexy in a grown-up way that lasts far longer than a fleeting moment of passion. Contraception is more than just a method. It's a practice of consent, of respect, and, as it should be, of shared responsibility. It is the infrastructure that allows sex to be fun, to be safe, and therefore to be mutually satisfying. So if it's treated that way, everything else can fall into place. The pleasure, the intimacy, the relationship, because the foundation is solid and practical and honest. And that's actually the kind of adult sex that's worth aiming for. Friends, lovers, listeners, yes, I know, a little bit of a ranty episode from me, but with everything being said, I want to end today's episode by being quite frank and honest and obvious, actually. I don't have an answer for how we fix the contraception disparity. I don't know what the perfect system looks like. I don't know how we redistribute the hormonal load or how we magically make responsibility feel equal when biology very much is not. What I do know is that pretending it isn't a problem hasn't worked. Silence hasn't worked. Expecting women to just quietly tolerate side effects, mood changes, bleeding, pain, mental load, while men opt out because something feels less nice, also hasn't worked. And the answer isn't going to come to us all in one big solution. It's smaller and messier and more uncomfortable than that. We need more honest conversations. We need better education. We need men and penis owners to actually learn how contraception works, not just whether they like it. We need partners taking responsibility for the methods they can control. We need doctors to listen when patients say, this is not working for me, so I don't know how to fix it. But I do know this. We didn't end up here at this current imbalance by accident. And pretending it doesn't matter is part of the problem. And the more we talk about it properly, honestly, without shame or sugarcoating, the harder it becomes to pretend it's just a women's issue or just the price of having sex. So if you are a man or a penis owner with a female or vulva owner partner and you are listening to this episode, please check in with your female or vulva owner partner. Actually check in. Ask how the contraception they are currently using is affecting them and whether it's still working for them physically, mentally, emotionally, not as a courtesy, not as a box ticking exercise, but because it matters. And if you are the one carrying the hormonal load, you aren't being dramatic or difficult for questioning it. Side effects aren't a personal failing, and tolerating misery is not a requirement of adulthood or sex. I wish I had the answer for how we fix the imbalance in contraception. To be honest, I wish we'd rolled out the male pill and made the choice available rather than just deciding men were too delicate to take it. It's ironic that the word pussy gets thrown around as a sign of weakness, but the people carrying one are considered the stronger sex when it comes to contraception, isn't it? But I do know this. Because of the shitty options we have, responsibility doesn't start at the pharmacy or the GP's office. It starts in the relationship, in conversations that are sometimes awkward, sometimes uncomfortable, but always necessary. We sadly don't have a perfect system, so what we need is honesty and the willingness to take this stuff seriously. Because contraception isn't just about prevention, it's about care. And if we treated it like that more often, I think a lot of people would be having a much better time. So I guess my answer is, at the very least, that's something we can all start doing right now. I will be back next week with the season 4 finale, a much more light-hearted episode. But for now, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.